with St. Peter's, what made you go, okay, I'm super confident with this area. I know that the demand's here. Like, did you do, like, there's a lot of research?
Yeah, no, there was a lot of market research. So I was living in Newtown at the time, so the inner west. I knew that there was a demand for that area. I liked Newtown, but I couldn't afford it. And St. Peter's was kind of just down the road. And I mean, as with a lot of businesses, like, it's about finding the right space. So I found a space that was so much bigger than I thought I needed. But yeah, I was like, we don't need this much space. Like, how could we possibly expand to be this big? And within a year, we needed to take that space back to create more studios. I think you find, you know, especially when you do have that kind of creative mind, you find a space and you feel it. Like, I was like, yeah, I can see. I mean, it was just an old rundown warehouse, but it had really good bones, really beautiful timber beams, and
you could see the framework.
You could
like,
see
I could see this coming together.
Yeah, and that's such a fun process. Like, that's the design and build is almost like my favorite part of each location, because you can, you know, create a really special space.
Welcome to Behind the Design, a podcast where we unfold the details behind the designs we know and love, and explore how each project comes to life. I am Camilla Ingle, owner of Unfolded, an interior design and styling studio. In this podcast series, we dive into the details with our industry experts, covering topics such as the creative process, latest design trends, and how we, as an industry, work together to meet the brief and overcome challenges. Let the conversation begin. So Lucy, welcome to Behind the Design.
Thank you for having me.
I'm going to give a bit of a background for how we met. We've met probably 4 years ago now.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, became friends, and recently we've been working on a project together. So tell me a little bit about your background and what you do.
So I'm the founder and director of Scout Pilates Yoga. We're in our 5th year, so opened first studio in July 2019 in St. Peter's, and opened a second location in Marrickville May last year, so May 2023, and we have another location that I can't disclose yet because our members don't know, but opening in November this year. So yeah, it's been quite the journey. Never thought that we would be kind of at this stage so quickly, or it seems quick to me, but it's such a joy. It's such a love job, really. Like, I'm so lucky to be able to do something like this and enjoy it and have a great team around me. So yeah, onwards and upwards.
Like a very fruitful passion project.
Yeah, like I took a long time to know what I wanted to do in life, I feel. Did a bunch of degrees, tried a bunch of different paths. But yeah, inevitably it all ended up with Pilates, and then being able to create my own studio and vision with that.
When you say you've done a couple of degrees and obviously navigated your way to 2019 July, opening the studio, what do you think was the catalyst for you to go, okay, this is what I'm going to do? Like, when did that come to you? Was it a year prior?
So one of the degrees I did was a Bachelor of Design. And I worked in the interior space for a little bit, but as much as I loved it, I don't think it was like my passion. And then I went back to university again to do a Bachelor of Health Science. And just at the time I was doing a lot of Pilates. Like, it was a relatively new kind of exercise to me, definitely. And the opportunity came up to do a teacher training program, which I really just kind of did it on a whim.
Like, rolled into it.
Thought it would be interesting, not really with the intention to teach. And then after that, there was just a lot of opportunity, and I kind of fell into a couple of teaching jobs. I then moved to New York in 2016 and taught over there. And while I had enjoyed teaching in Sydney, it was a really different kind of market over there, like really interesting spaces, all sorts of different people doing Pilates, where it had felt very kind of, you know, very the only, you know, eastern suburbs women kind of doing it in Sydney at the time. And I was just seeing this whole market of different people doing it in crazy, amazing spaces, warehouses.
Inspiring.
Really inspiring. And I kind of came back and I was like, that's what I want to do. Like, I want to open a studio. My dad's always been, you know, an entrepreneur in business, and he was like, yep, write me a business plan. Like, let's see if we can make this work. And probably within about 18 months, after kind of sourcing, you know, looking at various different spaces, working out how the business model would work, yeah, it all happened. Signed a space in May, opened in July after a bit of a fit out, and here we are today.
Wow. So it'll be almost 3 and 5 years that you've built.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
Wow. That's pretty special.
Yeah. Look, I'm stoked with how it's gone. Like it's so fun. Really, really enjoyable.
And it's so interesting because obviously St. Peter's and then Marrickville. Sorry, St. Peter's, then Marrickville.
St. Peter's and Marrickville, yeah.
And then this third one, which we won't disclose.
I'm sure it will slip out.
It will. It might slip out. It's okay. The episode doesn't go live for a while. So okay, good. You know, with St. Peter's, what made you go, okay, I'm super confident with this area. I know that the demand's here. Like, did you do, like, there's a lot of research?
Yeah, no, look, there was a lot of market research. So I was living in Newtown at the time, so the inner west. I knew that there was a demand for that area. I liked Newtown, but I couldn't afford it. And St. Peter's was kind of just down the road. As with a lot of businesses, like, it's about finding the right space. So I found a space that was so much bigger than I thought I needed. And my dad was like, no, I think you'll need it. Like, you might need to expand. And I was like, I couldn't believe. So I actually...
What does that mean?
I was like, no, like, we need to start small. And we actually sublet a back area of this space to another company, Hunter Candles, who I'm sure you know.
Yes.
They're about to open their third store.
The event the other night.
Yeah. So Vianney, like, she started her business in there, which is so nice because we're both kind of opening our third place together. But yeah, I was like, we don't need this much space. Like, how could we possibly expand to be this big? And within a year, we needed to take that space back to create more studios. Wow. Yeah. So
good.
Yeah, I mean, like, I think you find, you know, especially when you do have that kind of creative mind, you find a space and you feel it. Like, I was like, yeah, I can see. I mean, it was just an old rundown warehouse, but it had really good bones, really beautiful timber beams, and
you could see the framework.
You could
like,
see
I could see this coming together.
Yeah. And that's such a fun process. Like, that's the design and build is almost like my favorite part of each location, because you can, you know, create a really special space.
And it has been interesting working with you. I won't again speak too much of it with the third studio, but it is so amazing when you have a client who is so design and build savvy, because obviously most of our clients are, hey, I've got some architectural plans. Can you just come in and make it pretty and help me make this a functional and purposeful space while making it beautiful? But you've got that knack for, I've already done St. Peter's, I've already done Marrickville. I know what I want, but I want it to be elevated. Like, you've got that knack. Not everybody has that. I always think, like, do you ever just have a moment where you just pat yourself on the back, like, doing so well? And now a mum, you know.
Yes, I'm really, like, putting a lot on the plate, but it's good. It's a good spot to be in.
Yeah. How is the juggle with motherhood?
It hasn't been too much of a juggle. I mean, it has, but I'm really lucky in the fact that we have my mum that helps out. We have a nanny that helps out. And I've got an incredible team at Scout. So, you know, I'm very hands off most of the time for kind of the daily stuff. And I, you know, that's one of the big reasons that I brought in help to do this studio. Number one, I wanted it, you know, in an elevated way that is probably not, I don't have quite the skill set to get it there. And I couldn't do it myself. I don't have the time.
That was one of our first conversations.
Yeah. You know, like, I love being a mum, and I want to be there. I have taken little Rui to site a couple of times.
Yes.
And babies and concrete floors don't really mix. So
little mat goes down.
So it's just nice to be able to, like, and lucky to be in the position where I can get the right team to help me and, you know, so far be able to do both fairly well.
Yes, exactly. And it is good because you've got that from my experience on this project as well. Like, there's a lot of project managing of all the different trades and things like that. And because you're across the detail that is required for a Pilates studio, like, even I have learned so much. And I've done Pilates for years, and I'm like, of course there needs to be a towel bin. You know?
There's so many little things.
But does it look good?
Yeah,
Make sure that towel bin looks good.
There's so many things. But I think also I have pretty much from the beginning used the same team. All the, you know, trades across completely different businesses, but I have this, like, core team that knows, you know, even these guys that I've worked with, whether it's, like, you know, the electrician or the plumber, like, they know how a Pilates studio needs to be in terms of the electrical work, the plumbing work. Yeah, like, my Sparky will be like, okay, hold on, you want a speaker here and here, remember, for this kind of studio. So, like, this team that I've created and these relationships, like, it's actually really easy to be like, okay, guys, call them up. We're on to the third studio. They're all happy to be available and, you know, go above and beyond to, like, really support me. Like, we've created a really nice network and and relationship.
Yeah, and I guess that circles back to what you and I spoke about, the mission behind Scout Pilates and what you want to achieve for your members is that community feel.
Yeah.
So not only is the space reflective of that, it's the energy in it. So not only have you created these beautiful spaces with sort of like a community of trades, you're also doing that. So it feels like such a strong message for you.
I hope so. Like, I think, you know, as everyone always talks about, like everyone's on their phones all the time and maybe working from home, and often people can feel really disconnected. And I like that we hope to create this kind of sense of community at Scout. We run all sorts of different workshops, events. We partner with businesses, whether they're like-minded or not in terms of industry. You know, we have lots of partnerships with different businesses. We have like this kind of network for our community where there's just like lots of options and opportunity to connect. Like we have, you know, these great friendships between instructors, clients. Like, you know, so many people will be like, oh, I come to class with this girl that I met at Scout. And I just love that we've created this, you know, environment in terms of how we display our community, whether it's socials, whether it's newsletters, but we also kind of have this feel in the studio that people want to hang around and have a chat,
like welcoming, belonging.
Sit in the waiting areas. Like it feels like a space that you can hang out. We often get like a lot of mums come in really early before class. Like I remember, you know, when I first started Scout, there would be mums lining up at the door at 5:45 a.m. I was like, why are you guys here? And they're like, my kids are asleep. I want to come in and sit down and take my time while my partner's at home with the kids. So I want to create that kind of that space where people can just hang out, maybe meet a new friend,
connect, and get fit.
Yeah, enjoy the class.
Which is inspiring as well. You know,
hopefully.
like, yeah.
You know, like we have art up in the studios. We, you know, at Marrickville, we have like a rotating art wall where we showcase different artists every month. So it's just nice to be able to have this cool space, have this amazing community, and just try out different ways to connect with people, different offerings, different events. Not all of them work, but most of them do. And it's fun. Like it makes me able to like flex my creative muscle.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And so then now that you're working on the third one, are you already foreseeing number 4? Or yeah, I just feel like the pace.
My partner would hope not. Yeah, like I think there's some new elements in the third studio that are a little bit of a proof of concept. Like we want to try and prove a couple of things, see how it works in our community and our market, and
like see how it's received kind of thing.
Yeah, and I've got some ideas of how to kind of expand that. I feel like 3's always been the number.
It's nice.
It's nice, you know, it's manageable.
Yeah, manageable.
But yeah, look, you know, there's so many opportunities to grow. So yeah, definitely in the pipeline, but I don't have my sights on any locations just yet.
Yeah, that's so good. And so obviously, yeah, the inner west is completely booming. I guess I've always wondered, and I've probably been meaning to ask you, in such an environment where there is just a lot of similarities in service offerings, how do you find that you differ, or what do you offer that you would say this is different outside of maybe the community feel? Is there anything else that
I think
because there's got to be something in it, right, that gets everyone coming back?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of things meshed together. Like I don't think it's any one thing. I think we are very client centric. We're always open to feedback. We're always trying to get feedback. We're always trying to improve our offering, improve our space, improve our service, improve our timetable. Like we're very receptive to all that feedback, and we are constantly getting that feedback and making changes where we can.
Adaptable to everything.
Adaptable. We try, like, you know, even in terms of our membership offerings and our class offerings, we have so much on offer. We have so many ways to become a member, whether you can come once a week or 7 times a week. And we have lots of classes. We have a very broad demographic, whereas, you know, there's some fitness spaces that have a smaller market in terms of who their target is, you know, whether it's a really darkly lit room, you know, you're probably not going to get people that have issues with mobility or worried about things, you know, worried about being able to see. So we just try and create a very open community. And I think one of the things is we employ really well. We have incredible instructors, and we have our clients that, you know, find an instructor or instructor group that they really like, and they are so loyal, like committed to that. Yeah. So yeah, I think it's a whole lot of things. I think it's a space. I think it's our instructors. I think it's how we connect with our community. We have people that move out of area and then move back and are like, oh my God, just want to come back to Scout. Like, that's why we moved back. Like, yes. It's a really nice, we have people that have been with us the entire time, and have done 500 classes or 700 classes. Like, it's just wild. They'll be like, I bought the merch at the very beginning and they have this tattered old t-shirt.
OG Scout.
That they've worn forever. So it's just so nice to see that, like people that, have made Scout a part of their lives.
That's so cool. And obviously recently we were looking at some suppliers and one of them reached out and said that they're proper fangirling of Lucy from Scout. I said, well, funny you say that. She's also on the podcast.
I was just like fangirling her. Like, yeah, it's so
they
funny.
Remember.
Yeah, Sarah and Coco, another girl, they were like the OGs. Like, yeah. I even used them for a photo shoot one time, like way before I was like investing in the photo shoots. I was just like asking clients very politely if they would stay and be in a couple of photos. But yeah, it's really nice to remember that kind of phase because it was when I was on the desk all the time and I was teaching all the classes all the time. And, now in the capacity that I work, I don't know everyone's names and I don't teach any classes, but those days, like when it was the real OG culture from the beginning.
And they've still got, she still had such good things to say. Like,
yeah, well, she still has her Scout t-shirt.
Yeah, exactly. And so how did you transition out of, do you miss teaching? Do you still teach?
I don't, and I do miss it. I've asked Bree, who's one of our managers, to put me on the schedule, hopefully at the next location. But yeah, at the moment, it's just, unfortunately, I can't fit it in, but I love teaching. I really like teaching a mat class especially is one of my favorite things.
Because remember you and I went to the St. Peter's one?
Yeah.
I think it was a hot yoga from memory, or more. It was maybe a bit warmish, but it was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Like such a good experience. I think that particular instructor, I should say, reminded me of a class I went to in New York. I don't know, there's something about like different instructors and their approaches, and some instructors are so invested in what the moves are offering the member or the client. And I really felt that in that class. Like it was all about what movement was going to teach you to do different things with your muscles and how hot, like it was so involved.
Yeah.
And like that's a point of difference because you don't always get that.
No, and
you actually get a class and
our instructors are so, like we have an incredible team and they're all experts in their craft. They're all constantly learning. We do a lot of workshops, internally and externally. So we're always trying to like stay ahead of what's happening, what's the current research. We get a lot of physios in. So we can
physios do
in terms of injury management, in terms of, like how things move in I guess movement is quite quick, like, a way to do a lunge or what's the best way to rehab an injury. There's things evolve as time goes on. So there's a lot, especially in kind of like the prenatal space where we have a lot of clients. It used to be like, oh my gosh, they're pregnant. They couldn't possibly do anything. And now it's like, oh, these women are very strong. They're about to, go into labor. So this is how we can really, increase their strength, work on, what they need to focus on.
And that's so empowering for women, I think, these days.
Yeah.
Because it used to be quite like, oh, you're pregnant, full stop. And all these things stopped.
There's like studios around that, they say at 12 weeks, like, I'm sorry, your journey ends here, come back to us post-baby. So we still get a lot of those clients, but we have so many clients that I've seen through first babies, through second babies, through third babies. So they've kind of come in, then they've got pregnant, they've moved into different classes, then they've had the baby, then they've come into our parents and cubs classes, then they've gone back to regular classes, and they've kind of gone through this cycle. And it's amazing. We've seen this, this whole journey of these people.
Yeah, because I would have thought it's up until 36 weeks?
That people can train.
Yeah.
They can train. We have people at 39 weeks. Wow. As long as you're feeling good and strong, there's like definitely...
And it's good for pregnant women because of like lower back pain and there's so much to it.
Girdle issues, all sorts of stuff. But we've had I wasn't. I wish I could have trained up to that stage, but we have so many incredibly fit women that are like, you see the classes where people drop off and then they just disappear. And so the instructor's always like, oh, so-and-so's had the baby, otherwise you just feel like they kind of disappear into the ether.
Yeah, I wonder where she went.
Exactly. They just kind of drop every week. It's a really nice, it's just really nice to be able to kind of support people through all their lives, depending if it's an injury or a pregnancy or
It's like the full journey.
Mental health issues, like the number of clients that we have that are like, I love the exercise, but this is for my mental health as well.
And especially like when I mentioned it's empowering, but also it's an inspiring space, I think that can sometimes help mental health in terms of being around like-minded individuals doing the same thing. Because sometimes, if you're busy, or I find sometimes if I'm a bit overwhelmed with work, I might, wake up at 3 a.m. thoughts. And then my alarm goes off at 5:30. I'm like, have I slept? But if I know I'm going to a really good Pilates class with my community, that gets me up and going, rather than maybe just going for a run on the beach. I might pass. But it's that energy, isn't it? Of like, I'm going to go meet.
It's kind of, it's that energy, that connection. And I mean, I'm always about aesthetics for an environment. Like I love how things play, and like that's an important thing to me. But to be able to come into a space that feels generous and welcoming and uncluttered and clear with lots of natural light, like we really play on those elements. And it's a breath of fresh air, no matter if you're kind of coming from your office or coming from home. Like it always, like we have like a signature scent that was developed by Hunter Candles, and people come in and they're like, oh, the scent. So like even the walls have literally been like impregnated with this candle scent because we've burned it for like 5 years. So it's this whole sensory experience memorable. When you come in. Yeah. Like sometimes I like hid in the space by it. But it's a really...
You won't forget it.
Won't forget it. It's just really nice. I mean, I love it. It's my second home, but I hope that that's the feeling that everyone else gets as well.
And so where are you based now? Are you...
In terms of living?
Yeah.
We have just moved down to Phillip Bay, which is like in the La Perouse area. So from the inner west down to, I guess, the eastern south area, which is lovely. Like it's very quiet and bushy, lots of beaches close by. I mean, I do miss the hustle and bustle of the inner west, but having a small baby, I'm not kind of going to the breweries and bars that I used to. So... it's a really nice space to be.
Yeah, and it is really interesting. I think the difference, like you're saying, being that creative behind all of this, but also being a Pilates instructor, but also owning it. Like there's so many hats that you're wearing.
There is a lot of hats.
Yeah.
But in saying that, like I have an incredibly good team. Like I've got an amazing operations manager, kind of a people and culture manager as well, that are kind of my main team. And like they pretty much run it without me these days, I feel like. But it's really nice to be able to have a team where I can really do the fun bits for me, like, creating new studios and having ideas. And, they probably roll their eyes sometimes at some of the ideas I have to try and execute. But it's, that's where I've been really lucky that I've, hired really well and been able to create this incredible supportive team that also carries the vision for Scout. Like they know exactly how I want it to look like, and it's a shared vision.
Yeah, it's like a branding thing too. Like you've created a brand.
Yeah.
And so do you think you've got your entrepreneurial gene from your dad?
Yes.
That sounds like it.
Yes.
I remember thinking that when we were first chatting, I'm thinking she's very entrepreneurial. That word I find a bit interesting sometimes.
Yeah.
I think the underpinning message is that you have this opportunistic nature and you see past what's in front of you, right?
Yeah, I've never been super risk adverse. Like, small businesses fail all the time, and, maybe our time will come one day. But I have always had a lot of support and encouragement to try things and to experiment. And, my brother's also kind of in a startup. So we definitely have that from my dad. I would say my mum is quite risk adverse herself. But that's, it's a good balance to have.
It is. Especially as role models in your world.
Yeah. But yeah, my dad has always definitely been he used to do the floor plans with me on his CAD for his work. So it's been a nice journey.
That's handy.
Yeah.
Because that's obviously what we're working on.
Exactly. Like I would say a basic CAD version compared to what you guys are mocking up for me. But it was very much like, how many beds can we fit in this room? Like move the wall this way, move the wall that way.
But there's so much to it. And I think it's so important given the success of, you've already had 1, 2, now we're on 3. You don't want to go backwards. You're only going forward. So it's like, how can we make it just that little bit better? Like the last conversation I had with one of the podcast guests was, can each day just be a little bit better? Instead of having too much pressure, it's like, just make it that little bit better. And I think a lot of the pressure in terms of doing this is always on myself. Like it's actually not other people's pressure or
Like I'm like, this needs to be done now. And then I'm like, it doesn't actually. Like I've just given myself that date in my head. So I think the first cab off the rank is always probably the most pressure. Like you don't even know if it's going to work. You've got no certainty that it's going to be successful. But now, like I was driving around today, I was like, it's really nice to feel less pressure. Like I know it should work. I've got a great team. If it doesn't get done today, it'll get done tomorrow. Like it's a really nice feeling to not have this stress and
the intensity of it.
But also to realize that stress was probably all put on by myself anyway, just to be able to step away from it and be like, it is what it is. It will get done. We've got,
and it will get done, like but it's the same. I think a lot of people, we don't talk about it much, but we're all thinking this same thing. So we're all walking around like pressure cookers.
Yeah.
Trying to calm everybody down.
And then I'm like, you run a Pilates studio, you're not a brain surgeon, no one's dying. Yeah, exactly.
Totally. I'm like that sometimes with clients who are like, my curtains are late. And I'm like, oh my gosh, stressing out, calling the supplier, checking everything. And then you have those moments because you might take that to dinner with your family and everyone's like, I'm sure they'll get there in time.
Yeah.
And you're like, why?
Like acting like someone died. You just really have to check yourself.
Yeah, check yourself.
Really have to check yourself.
Totally. Yeah, it's so true. And so in all of this, do you have this like inspiration? Like you mentioned New York when you kind of went over and...
I think when I first came back, it was, the spaces were really grand, like they were often converted warehouses. And I think that's where I kind of looked for the kind of space that I wanted. Lots of natural light, often brick, to kind of have that texture, but super simple spaces, like really reflecting.
Raw too.
Raw, exactly, yeah. So where you can kind of put these beautiful finishes, but
make it your own too, because you're good at that.
Yeah, like and it doesn't just feel too done, like what I wanted it to, also budget-wise, it's also nice to have that little kind of design element that you don't want it too done. But yeah, like natural light, open spaces, decluttered. And that's, coming in to do a class, you need a mat or a reformer. That's it.
Yeah.
You don't need a lot of clutter. We always have mirrors. And then it's kind of those little touches in terms of what finishes we use.
Yeah, totally. And that creates that more deliberate design and bit of character. But it's not too much, like we were saying from the start, like no pretentiousness for this space because there's no element of pretentiousness in your community.
Yeah.
It's so open and welcoming and inviting. So to carry that through into a design is really important, right? Because they're going to feel that when they come in. If it's too bougie.
Exactly, but too bougie.
We end up away.
I don't know about this. But yeah, we just want it to be like, and also fun. Like, you don't want enough space to feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to ruin anything here. Like, it's got to be functional. It's got to be beautiful. Like, everything is a consideration. Like, oh, that surface, like that'll be too shiny. Then it'll show a mark. Then it'll look dirty. Then we'll have to clean it all the time. Like, not that surface.
Totally.
So it's just like those little things just to make, life easier for everyone.
Yeah. And so maintenance now, you're saying you've got people covering, you've got the operational manager, that's Elle.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so will she cover all three? How does that work?
I've got two, so Bree and Elle, who are kind of my main team, they will cover all three in terms of what they do. They kind of satellite around, and then we will have studio leads underneath who then run their own kind of studio administration team and instructors under that. So like, so it kind of always feels like a bit of a moving beast as we expand and change and add to the team. But it's kind of cool having, the locations, they run the same way, and we have a lot of crossover with instructors. So it's kind of, we've got the systems and processes in place. It's just about being able to execute them, on a wider level.
And did you find that easy to create those systems and processes? I feel like that's like
that would have to be an Elle question. He's probably designed most of our systems and processes. But I think anything that you do more than once, you have to have a process for. I can't remember who told me that, but it makes sense. Whether it's the ways you answer a phone call or clean something or, everything kind of has a system and a process. So we have systems and processes for everything, and all those information documents are available for, who needs them. It's just about whether people read them or not.
Totally.
But
knowing that you've got them that's where you need to be.
It's really nice, like, whether it's safety, whether it's hygiene, whether it's how to get in, when the studio lock isn't working. Like, there's so many different things, but it means all the information is there, and it's, it doesn't feel stressful when something doesn't work because all the information is there.
And particularly when you're scaling, like I've found as the owner of Unfolded, coming up to 5 years in November.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Scaling the business and you know everything. And that's obviously very different in terms of I haven't built a studio with lots of different staff, but having a studio, interior design studio, where you're scaling and having people come in and help you, they'll ask you questions on how you do things. And you're thinking, I just do it my way. What do you need to know? For me, it's creating process manuals and systems from that.
Yeah.
It's like, that's so important. I mean, it's so clear, but sometimes you're also changing them along the way because you're learning and growing.
It's a moving beast, but I think like a lot of our systems and processes are to do with like the software that we use or our
opening and shutting down.
Like we have very specific processes and systems that don't alter a lot. Like they might be added to, there might be a new change in how it's done, but we're rolling out the same thing. Hopefully,
it's really cookie cutter. Like you hope. So
there's not too many changes, and I guess strategic in the beginning where I never wanted to be like the face of the business. Like I didn't want to be.
You're very behind the design.
I hope so. And so it meant that there was like other people that came to the forefront in terms of my team being able to execute stuff because it wasn't just all me. I really needed a team from the beginning, and some of our team we've had from the very beginning.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's really cool.
Like that's a nice feeling as an owner that, it's like you said, it's the loyalty, but there's a reason people stay with you.
I hope so. Like I really, like our clients are incredibly important, but our instructor team and
other administration
team. Yeah, exactly. They're what keeps everybody coming back.
Yeah. Oh, it's so good. Well, I've actually really loved having you on in the way of... Well, it's just a different behind the design. Your industry in terms of, when I say industry, you're part of the industry in terms of you've created 2 studios yourself with a bit of maybe your degree and experience and things like that, but you've gone and done all of that. Like it's pretty big.
Thank you.
Plus the operational side, which is massive, and being an instructor. And so I think what I love for my listeners is for them to understand what it takes to get into, what it takes to create a Pilates studio. There's so much, which I've also learned.
Yeah.
Number 3, and our team getting involved. And it's been an inspiring process because it's sort of like, wow, I understand what goes into that, as a commercial space, because we do mainly residential. But it's been really inspiring and nearly almost educational to learn what goes into it. So much into it.
Yeah.
The level of detail and, as you said, how many reformer beds can fit in a certain space. And it's so important because you're needing to maximize that space.
Oh, 100%.
And that's probably been one of the biggest messages. How can we maximize? How can we optimize? And that's such a good driver because it means that when someone comes into that space, they can see that it's also deliberate as well. So, it's been amazing having you on.
Thank you.
As a friend too. Supporting the platform.
It's so nice to be on. Like, it's so exciting to be part of your podcast.
So I've got a final question.
Yes.
What's the most bizarre or unexpected thing you've learned in your career?
So I would say, I don't think it's bizarre, and it's probably very normal to a lot of people. But the biggest thing I found is relationships drives what you do. Like the amount of people that I've surrounded myself with in terms of like people that can help Scout, other businesses, like this network of people that, if we're having an event, I know a caterer that'll, I can call up that'll support us and we'll support her at something else. Or whether it's like my, electrician who will come and fix anything that we have going on at the drop of a hat, no matter what he's got on, because we work so well together. Like, and being able to like network, you need this person, or like, do you have a contact for this kind of thing? And like, we're a Pilates studio, but I have contacts and networks, I feel like, in all sorts of different industries from Scout. And it's really nice to have people to be like, hey, do you know anyone that can sort me out for this? And you have someone that's like, yeah, 100%, I'm going to set you up with this person.
So you're confident too in referring them.
Yeah, like it's just a really nice, like, to be able to have, and created friendships with a lot of these people that I would have never run into in everyday life. Like we just would have never come across each other in terms of industry. But just to have these like, cool connections, they're great professionally, but also you just meet a whole new team of people. I don't know. I think that's one of the biggest things. Like,
you didn't expect for all of that to come with
and then you get this incredible knowledge. Like, I'll call up my Sparky especially. I'll be like, can I cut this wire? And he's like, oh, nah, I think you better leave that to
red or blue. Red or blue.
Yeah, exactly. Or like, my plumber today I spoke to, and there's a job that needs to be done that is definitely not in his area, and he was like, you know what, I'll just come and do it tomorrow. All good. Like, it's just really nice to have this incredible team. But I think investing in your relationships, and, you know, you just never know where they'll lead you.
Totally.
Yeah.
Good. And so normally I would say what's next for Scout Pilates, but we kind of know.
Number 4, number 3 coming in November.
Yeah.
But yeah, look, I have no plans on stopping, you know, the Scout brand. I just don't know what's next. Yeah.
That's cool. It's kind of cool keeping it open.
Yeah.
See what happens.
Post-November. Maybe a little break and then...
Yeah. Have a Christmas rest back in Jan.
Exactly.
Well, thank you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Behind the Design. We've created this podcast to bring people together, inspire new ideas, and foster a deeper understanding of what goes on behind the design. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing it with someone who might find it valuable. Until next time, keep creating and stay inspired.